Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just going to give a few more minutes while people enter. Hello Natalie. So I think we can start now. So just to give everyone a short background, I'm Jan and I'm the marketing executive for Knowledge Train. Knowledge Train and Agile KLC are in partnership. Today we have Nick with us. So Nick, thank you so much for joining.
Pleasure.
Just before I do head over to Nick, right at the end, after Nick gives his presentation, there will be a Q&A session. So while Nick gives his presentation, if you do have any questions, please write them down in the chat, and right at the end, we'll go through them all. Thank you, everyone. So Nick, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute delight to be invited to present on this webinar on behalf of Knowledge Train. And just so that you're aware, I can only see the slides on screen at the moment, so I can't see any of the chat window. So that's why Sevkan suggested that at the end of the session, I'll take questions and answers. So today's session is about giving you some thoughts and ideas and strategies for your individual but also team success. And I thought we'd start because I think some of you have connected with me on LinkedIn already, but for the majority of you, you probably haven't. So I thought best to give you a little bit of background as to who I am and why I call myself a teamworkologist. So a teamworkologist is a word, a phrase that I came up with because I wanted to try and give people an understanding of what I do. So a teamworkologist is a person who studies the dynamics of teamwork, and I use this knowledge to help teams become more effective and more efficient and achieve greater success. And I do this through my company called Engagement Works. And for those of you who'd like to know, I reside in Bournemouth, which is on the south coast in Dorset. But originally, my city of birth is Plymouth in Devon. So bit of background about me before we get into the meat of the webinar. I'm a behavioral psychologist, and I got my accreditation when I used to work for Barclays Bank. That's where my career started. I worked for Barclays for 20 years. And during that 20 years, when I became a project leader and an operational leader, I got my accreditation in behavioral psychology to give me a better understanding of who I was, but also who the people were in my team, so that I could motivate and inspire them in the ways that met their needs. Over my career, after I left Barclays, for the last 20 plus years, I've been working with teams around the globe to help them become more effective, more efficient, and achieve greater success. So these are some of the companies that I've worked with. I've worked with hundreds of companies, and I've profiled thousands of individuals during the last 20 plus years. And when I'm not working with teams, the other thing that I do is I speak at conferences. So I've spoken at conferences throughout the world. I've spoken at over 500 conferences about teamwork and achieving high performance. predominantly in the UK, but I've also spoken at conferences in most of the capital cities of Europe, and then further afield I've spoken in the US and the Far East and the Middle East. The furthest from the UK being Bali. I spoke in Bali just before we hit the pandemic. And the last thing about me is that based on the work that I do with teams, I created a model called Team Dynamics, and Team Dynamics measures 16 areas of teamwork. And I'm going to give you a bit of an understanding of that model to get you to consider how you might measure different aspects of your teamwork. The last project that I undertook was during COVID, and nobody wants a team development specialist or a conference speaker when we were all in lockdown. So I'm not one to sit here twiddling my thumbs. So I thought, right, what I'll do is write a book based on my knowledge and experience. So I wrote a book that was published in March 2022 called Team Lead Succeed. And it's become an Amazon bestseller. And it's all about behaviors, teamwork, and leadership, hence the title. I started off with team, first of all, because there are more team members than leaders in the world. So I wanted to write a book that team members could actually utilize and make use of. And this is one of the quotes that I use. Great teamwork just doesn't happen. It happens in teams that work at being great. So Team Lead Succeed is a resource for teams to use to help them achieve success. And as we're in the world of project management, I was delighted that a review appeared in Project, which is the Association for Project Management's journal, and the great review was completed by Richard Noble, who some of you may know. He held the world record, land speed record in thrust 2. So I'm going to share some snippets from my experience, but also from Team Lead Succeed. So what are we going to do in the webinar? First of all, I'm going to give you an understanding of the reasons why projects fail. Then we're going to look at what underpins the success of KPIs, key performance indicators. And then I'll share some learning about the importance of knowing how effective and efficient your teamwork is. And finally, give you suggestions from Team Lead Succeed to help you and your team achieve high performance and greater success. So I hope you enjoy the next 50 plus minutes of this webinar. Okay, so a question: who wants their project to succeed? And no need to answer this, because I'm sure your answer is going to be yes. We all want our projects to succeed. However, unfortunately, not all of them do succeed. And based on research from white papers and research that you can easily find throughout the World Wide Web, 70% of projects fail to achieve their desired goals. And when I've studied these white papers and the research about projects, there's a theme that occurs. And the top 3 reasons why a lot of projects fail are the following. 1, a poor understanding of the skills of the team, which is quite frightening. You know, we sit with people sometimes in offices, and now with hybrid working, a lot of the time we're on conference calls, etc., with our team members. But a lot of teams don't understand the skills that they've got. And when I talk about skills, I'm talking about 2 sorts of skills. I'm talking about behavioral skills, So that's how we communicate, how we make decisions, our body language, so behavioral skills of the team. But equally important is an understanding of the technical skills that your team members bring to the team. So have they got the technical skills of being an accredited project manager? Have they got some other technical skills, such as, they're really good at Excel spreadsheets, or they're great at putting together presentations using PowerPoint or Canva or other such tools. So really good to understand both the behavioral skills and the technical skills of teams, because that is it certainly is a blocker in achieving project success. Secondly, lack of common understanding of the team's purpose, and I'll explore that with you in a little more detail later on. But your team's purpose is, what does your team exist to do? What does that enable, and what are the benefits? And then finally, little or no understanding of how effective or efficient teamwork is. So these are the big items why projects fail to achieve their desired goals. And as I said, this was research that I undertook based on information that was readily available to me on the internet. And I tested this out when I spoke at a conference in China, in Beijing. And I just asked the delegates, there were 170 delegates from around the world. And I asked them this question, what is it that holds back your project from succeeding? And again, they reiterated a couple of things that I shared from that research. We don't know the skills of our colleagues in our team. And secondly, we don't have the tools to help us understand how good or bad our teamwork is. So certainly that research that I undertook was echoed by those people at that conference. So I've done some research myself in terms of the model that I created, and the project teams that have used it initially to understand their teamwork. And Sevgan is going to share a poll at this moment in time, just to get you thinking about effectiveness and efficiency of teamwork. So Sevgan, if you could share the poll, that would be appreciated. And at the moment, I can't see the poll results on my screen. So Sevgan, if you could give me an indication of what people have said, that would be appreciated.
Yep, will do. Oh, we've got a tie. Interesting.
Interesting. Oh, do let me know.
Ooh. Okay, so with 5%, we have 3 people who selected 5%.
Okay.
And then 10%, we have 8 people. And then 20%, we have 8 people again.
Okay.
And then 25%, we have 1 person. And then 60%, we have 0.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to put you out of your misery in terms of which groups of people were correct in this. In terms of which teams are high performing, which percentage of teams are high performing, only 10% of teams are high performing. So those 8 people who chose 10%, well done to you. And average performance, 50% of teams, which frighteningly leaves 40% of teams being actually dysfunctional. Frightening statistics, but these are statistics from project teams that have used my team dynamics model to measure their effectiveness and efficiency for the first time of using it. And quite frightening in terms of only 10% actually high performing for the first time. And I think based on working with those teams, there are a number of problems that have caused this ineffectiveness, inefficiency in their teamwork. And what they've shared with me is that a lot of the problem is historic learning that's been given to leaders in how to lead their project teams, and also to team members in terms of how to run project teams effectively and efficiently. Secondly, too much focus on task. We work in a very fast-paced world these days, and quite often project teams have been forced down this route of making sure that tasks are completed on time, and sometimes that causes big problems in itself. And the third thing is, again, feedback from these teams that quite often there's too much reliance on software. Software is excellent, in its right place and used at the appropriate time. However, some project teams, there is an over-reliance on using software as the engine to drive forward the project itself. So these are the problems that people have said that they faced. And again, I like to test out what people say to me. And I tested this out at a European Program Directors Conference that I spoke at, and just simply said to the European Program Directors, what are the things that you talk about when you get together with your project teams for your team meetings? And these were the things that they came up with on the flip chart. We recorded them, and they said they talked about risk, they talked about scope, schedules, progress, key performance indicators, costs, safety, margins, profit, and PTP, which, forgive me, fails my memory as to what PTP stood for. However, there was a common theme here, is that they actually weren't talking about people or relationships, very much focused on tasks. So I think the solution is, quite simply, we've got to focus as project teams and individuals. We've got to spend more time on understanding who's in our team and how we can enhance our teamwork, because that's going to drive your projects forward. However, there is this caveat that I've found that far too often leaders and also teams, they're expected to deliver high performance, yet they're unaware of the tools that will help them to achieve it. And I don't know if that rings true with you in your projects, but a lot of the time, understanding who is in your team and how effective your teamwork is, teams aren't given those tools, or they don't understand those tools in their organizations. And I think the key thing is, what they tend to do is they focus on their KPIs. So a lot of projects are really focused on their key performance indicators and aren't aware of other tools that will help and support their projects. I'm sure that you use KPIs on your projects, and invariably those key performance indicators will be similar to some of these on the screen. You're likely to have key performance indicators around your budget, your project spend, your deadlines, the workload that you've got coming up, and the deadlines that have got to be achieved. So I'm sure that all of you have some sort of key performance indicators that are similar to this. And most key performance indicators that project teams use come back to this model here. You may have seen this model, you may have heard of it. It's often called the iron triangle, or the cost, time, quality triangle. It was created in 1969 by a guy called Dr. Martin Barnes. And basically what this iron triangle says is that if you have to change one of the apexes, it will have an impact on the other two apexes. So, for instance, if you need to increase the quality of your project, invariably that will probably take longer in terms of time, and certainly your costs will increase because you're going to have to pay people for a longer period of time. So that's an example where increased quality has this impact on both time and cost. And equally, you can do the same with the other two apexes there of that triangle. However, key performance indicators are only as good as your teamwork. So if your teamwork is not effective and efficient, then it will have an impact on your key performance indicators. And this is what a lot of project teams don't think about. They don't think about the effectiveness and efficiency of their teamwork, and wholly and solely are focused on their key performance indicators. And when I talk about effectiveness and efficiency, effectiveness is doing the right thing. So that's your purpose, what your team exists to do. And efficiency is about doing things right. So that's using the skills, the knowledge and experience of your team members in the best way possible, and also making sure that you are resourceful with other things that you have to hand. So resourceful in terms of your costs, and maybe utilizing software to help you achieve your goals. So there is a marked difference between when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency. So effectiveness, doing the right thing. Efficiency is doing things right. And when I spoke at a conference in Singapore about high performance teamwork, I just threw out the question to the 600 project managers that were at that conference, and just asked them, how many of you measure how effective and efficient your teamwork is? And surprisingly, or maybe not, only 1% measured their teamwork. And again, that has a direct correlation to how well you perform against your key performance indicators. And we've got to remember that it's people that deliver projects, and we achieve success through our teamwork. So actually understanding how effective and efficient our teamwork is vital, because if you don't understand how effective and efficient your teamwork is, how do you know how much better you could be as a team? So there's two foundations upon which you achieve high performance teamwork. The first is, as I mentioned earlier, knowing who is in your team. And that is about knowing who is in your team from a behavioral skills perspective, but also from the technical skills as well. So behavioral skills, probably the easiest thing you can do to understand behavioral skills is to use personality profiles. I don't know if some of you use them already. There's quite a few in the marketplace. The well-known ones are MBTI, Myers-Briggs type indicator, which gives you 16 different aspects of your personality. There's DISC is another one. I use a colorful one called Clarity 4D, which measures your personality based on the psychology of Carl Jung, and uses 4 colors, red, yellow, green, blue, to give you an understanding of what your behavioral makeup is. So Behavioral skills we can get from personality profiling. Technical skills we can get from various sources. We can get them from people's CVs. We can get them from HR records. We can get them from asking them, going up and saying, what technical skills do you bring to the team? So that's an important aspect and foundation. The other aspect is, as I mentioned, knowing how effectively and efficiently you work together as a team. And this is why I created the team dynamics model, which I'm going to just share with you in a moment, because I understood that teams sometimes don't understand what's going wrong or what's working well within their team. And as a team leader, I was very inquisitive when I used to lead my teams. I'd ask them lots of different questions about teamwork to understand and make sure we play to our strengths, but also if there were challenges that we discussed them as a team and we came up with practical ideas to overcome them. And that for those questions that I asked my team members, they formed the basis of this model that I created to measure 16 areas of teamwork. So there are 16, what I believe, elements of teamwork that we can measure and we should understand if we are to achieve high performance. And first of all, they are what I call the red elements, and you can see them on screen now. At the top, it's accountability. So do we know who is accountable for what within our team? Decision making, which is who has the authority to make what decisions. Purpose, which I said we'll go into in a bit more depth in a moment, is about understanding what your team exists to do. And vision is more aspirational. It's what do we want to achieve as a team in 2 years, 3 years time. So that's a aspirational vision of the future. Going back to purpose is what I call operational. That's what we do here and now, whereas vision is aspirational. So I call these elements strategic actions. Then we have what I call the blue areas. So this underpins everything you do as a team. So it's about planning. Do you have plans in place for your project team? Are those plans actually just written and then put in a drawer, or are they updated on a regular basis? So planning, really important. Do we have effective and efficient processes? If you were not in the office for maybe a month, you were off ill or off on your travels somewhere, do you have processes that are written down that people can pick up and run with? Reflection, so the bottom left, do you take time out from actually doing your day-to-day activities and sit down with your team and reflect on what's going well and maybe not what is not going so well? So a lot of teams, once the project starts going, it's like that snowball that's rolling down the hill. It just gets faster and faster and bigger. But it's really important that on occasions in your projects, you actually take time out to reflect and find out what we need to continue doing well and what we need to change to make it even better. And then roles and skills, which, as I mentioned earlier on, what behavioral skills have we got? What technical skills do we have? And are people in our project team in the right roles so that we can make use of those? So that's what I call framework mapping. It maps out a framework for you and your project team to work in. Then we move on to the yellow. So the yellow is about collaboration. How openly do people collaborate and share their knowledge and skills with others? What's our team communication like? Does it work for everyone when we communicate? Environment is about the culture that you create. So the project environment you work with, is it positive? Do you celebrate successes along the way? So is it just a heads down, get on with things, or is there camaraderie that builds a positive culture? And then transformation is about coming up with new ideas to make things more effective and efficient. So I call those creative interactions. They're interactions between individuals, and invariably there's a creative outcome to them. And then finally, the green. So on the right hand side, we've got commitment. How committed are team members to the success of the team? Then bottom right, do we value and appreciate diversity? How effective and efficient are our team meetings? Do we go to team meetings and they start and end on time? Do our team meetings end with actions that we then review at the next team meeting to make sure that those actions have been delivered? And then finally, trust. How strong is trust within our team? Do people trust each other so that we can work together collectively as a team? Do we work together for team success rather than an individual success? So is there a trust around that area? So those are the 16 different elements that make up the model. And the green is coactive connections. Coactive means they're alive and they're working, and connections is about relationships with individuals within the team. And so the model enables teams to measure their team effectiveness. So through a series of online anonymous questions, we can understand with a team how effective they feel their teamwork is. And as you can see, we've got some other data and information here. We can look at the top 8 elements, those things that are working reasonably well. But we can also see what are the things that are causing this team problems. So with this team, we can see that the bottom 3 are all in the blue, the framework mapping. They're saying that their planning, their reflection time, and their processes aren't working that well. So in doing so, we can actually give this team a benchmark to see where it compares with other teams. So we can see here this team as an example, their effectiveness is 66%. High-performing teams usually score 85% or above. This team falls within the average category. It's in the low end of the averages. And those teams that are developing or dysfunctional, sometimes as I call them, you can see that their score is usually below 65%. So as I said, this team is an average performing team. And we can also look at different other aspects of teamwork. So framework mapping and strategic actions, they are all task related. So this team has scored those as 64%. And then the creative interactions and coactive connections, they're all about relationships between people. So immediately this team could understand that there was an imbalance between task and relationships. And we could also see that the framework mapping here was the lowest at 55%. And as you can see by the graphical representation with the dots, that the 4 framework mapping elements were the bottom 4. So it gave an idea to the team of what they needed to work on, but also what they needed to celebrate. Decision making was quite good, team meetings and their vision and commitment, all reasonable scores there. So we could see the very good areas of teamwork, the areas that were good, and then the areas that were poor. So in measuring this, we can then actually do something about it. Now, the other thing that I like to share with you in this model is that there are different levels. So if we look at the elements in level 1, which is purpose, trust, planning, and collaboration, those are the most important things to get right and to make sure that they're working well within your team. Because if those aren't working well, they have the most impact on the whole area of teamwork and effectiveness and efficiency. So if those are performing badly as a project team, you really need to do something about it. So I thought I'd share with you the most important one, team purpose. A lot of commentators talk about trust being the most important, but in actual fact, team purposes and the analogy to bring this to life I explain is when you actually go and decide that you're going to put yourself forward for a particular project job, a particular project role, you look at the job description and you start to understand, well, what is the job about and how does that job play into what the project team exists to do, their team purpose. So invariably you go for that job for an interview based on the job description and what the team purpose is all about. You actually don't go for that job based on the fact that people trust each other. You don't know who is in that team at that moment in time. So it's the team purpose that is really, really important. So team purpose, the understanding of what the team does, what this enables, and the benefits this delivers. And again, based on the research I've done, 4 out of 10 team members actually say they don't understand their team purpose. They don't understand their objectives. And for me, that is absolutely frightening. So if you think about your team and how many people you've got in your team, potentially 40% of them actually don't really understand what your project team is existing to do or the objectives of your team. And so teams who are faced with a problem around team purpose, I get them to create a team purpose statement. And this is something that you might consider doing as an activity with your project teams. So first of all, a team purpose statement is made up of 3 elements. First of all, what you do, what that enables, and then what are the benefits. So quite simple. So the XYZ team exists to do certain things. That enables other things to happen. And then you should result in some benefits. So a team purpose statement should be motivational. It should motivate you and your team members. It should take no longer than a minute to explain to somebody else. It should have no jargon. Some teams, if they are creating a team purpose statement for an internal organization, then they might use a bit of jargon in it. However, if you are going to share this with people outside of your organization, you should have little or no jargon. And the reason being, you want it to be understandable. You want other people to understand it. So on the screen now, I'm just going to share an example of a team that I worked with a few years ago now. And this team was in finance. And the team were called the Bean Counters. Their affectionate name was the Bean Counters. So as you can imagine, they had quite a low morale. Other areas of the organization did not value and appreciate what they did. So when I started working with this team, I got into discussion and I said, okay, well, what do you do as a team? And on the top right, you'll be able to see what eventually they came back with: to produce monthly accounts that are as accurate as possible as quickly after the month end. I'm sure you'll agree with me, that's not very motivational. that's not inspirational. That's not going to get me out of bed enthused to go in and work with this team on a Monday morning each week. So we set about reflecting, taking time out from the day-to-day activities to actually create a team purpose statement. And this is what they came up with. And I'll give you a couple of moments to read that. And I think you'll agree with me that that's slightly more motivational and inspirational than the original thing that they said that they did. So much so that they actually started to feel good about themselves as a team, that they were doing something that was beneficial for the organization. And as a team, they decided to share this with other parts of the other departments in the organization that they work with. And I checked back in with them 3 months later, and they said that they were no longer called the bean counters. Their morale, the morale and the positivity was actually tangible. When I walked into their department and started chatting to them, you could feel that something quite seismic had changed within them, all because they had started to realize that what they did added value to the rest of the organization. So it can have some really positive benefits for you and your team. So here's another example. This is my team development learning organization, and I keep this top level. So this is my do statement, that I exist to provide learning and development solutions. I don't tell people initially that those solutions can be online, face to face, via webinars, speaking at conferences, just very high level. What does this enable? Well, it engages individuals and it motivates teams, and the benefits, it helps them to achieve even greater success. So very top level, no jargon. I can tell people within a minute, and people understand it and get it. So my recommendation to you is, when you're next with your team and you've got some time to undertake this activity, so at your next team meeting, first of all, get people to write down what they think your team purpose is. So get them to write it down individually. And then get each person to share what they've written, plus share what you've written as well. I think you'll be amazed at what people have written down. I was working with a leadership team of 10 recently in one of our biggest public sector organizations. And first of all, I challenged them and I said, "Are you a team?" They all said yes. And I said, "Okay, in that case, what I want you to do is write down what your team exists to do, what your team purpose is." And I got them to share what they've written down, and I got 10 different answers. And I said, if I was a leader, a new leader joining your team, and I asked Anne what she did, and she told me one thing, and then I asked John what he did, what the team did, and he told me something else, I'm going to be immediately confused on day one. So that led us into the activity of then creating our own team purpose statement. So maybe something for you to consider. As I said, team purpose is the most important element of those 16 areas of teamwork. So it's really important that everybody understands what your team exists to do, what that enables, and the benefits. And of course, if you all create it, in doing so, people will buy into it. And then if you get new team members on board your project, as the project continues through its life cycle, one of the first things I would suggest that you do is you share your team purpose with those new members of your team. So I hope that's just giving you some food for thought in terms of team purpose, and something that you can actually do almost immediately with your team and enhance understanding of your team purpose with team members. So in summary, before we go on to questions, number one, think about how you and your team can measure your team effectiveness and efficiency, especially if you're one of the 99% of teams that aren't measuring their teamwork. As a minimum, ensure everyone knows what your team exists to do. So your team purpose statement, what that enables and the benefits. And three, really importantly, don't be afraid to speak up when you feel that your teamwork could be better. Quite often I've sat in team meetings and somebody's mentioned something about their teamwork, and they've done it quite sheepishly to start off with. And then as soon as they've shared it with other people, there's nods of heads around the table. So if you think your teamwork could be better, always speak up about it. So thank you for listening. I'm going to take questions in a moment. Sevgan asked me to share this slide here so that you are aware of the courses that are available through Knowledge Train. Do you want to add anything in terms of this slide, Sevgan?
Just in terms of this slide, if anyone wants any more information, you can always email me. I'm just going to quickly pop my email. Alternatively, you can message the chat with the course you are interested in, and I will always email you. So that's about it. Thank you so much for the presentation, Nick.
Okay.
Could we move on to the Q&A now? If you do have questions, please pop them in the chat. I know that I think it was Gil that asked a question, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I'm going to come back online. So I've stopped sharing at the moment so that I can see the chat options.
Yep, we do have a question.
Okay.
It's about the middle of the presentation.
Okay. Where are we? Okay, from Gail. Hi, Nick.
Yep.
Would you recommend profiling team members before commencing project work? Yes, Gail. I mean, if you've got the opportunity to do so, I would. It wasn't very often. Quite often, we get a project team that's already in situ. However, I had a number of occasions where I was able to pick and choose who I wanted on my project team. And therefore, behavioral profiling was really useful to me to understand the different strengths and challenges and skills that different people had. So understanding what my project goals were, what we had to achieve, enabled me to get the right sort of personality types, but also those with the technical skills as well, to enable me to create the team that I felt best supported that project. So I'd say, yeah, right from day one, you know, as I said, out of those 16 elements of teamwork, trust is second place. So actually understanding people behaviorally is a really good way to kickstart your project. So I hope that answers that question for you. Have we got any other questions that have come in?
I think a few people are typing.
Okay. Becky, you mentioned that you experienced different team members giving different versions of understanding of their team purpose. How did you get them to the same understanding? Quite simply, with that team, that leadership team of 10 that I mentioned, I I split them into 2 groups to get them working as 2 groups, 5 in each group, to then take the best of what they'd all written down, and each of those 2 groups then created a new team purpose statement that they agreed with, and then we shared the 2 and took the best of both. So it's a lovely way to do it, because people enjoy working in smaller groups. So, and we get different perspectives and we get different views, but we can share those views and ideas, and then to come to consensus at the end. So yeah, it doesn't take a great deal of time. I would say that the majority of teams that I work with, usually if it's a team between 10 and 12 individuals, you can get a team purpose statement that everybody's agreed probably within 45 minutes. And what I say to people then is, then just share it with people, and just give them time to gather their thoughts and maybe polish it a little bit. So yes, you can do it quite effectively and quite efficiently. So I hope that's given you a better understanding of how to do that. Okay, so hopefully, Becky, that's helped you there. Great. Any other questions from other people?
Just while people think of questions, I'm just going to quickly open a survey.
Okay.
So if people could fill it out, that would be great.
This is where I start panicking.
Well, there is surely positive feedback.
This is nearly as bad as looking at my reviews of my book on Amazon. When you get notification of a new review, there's always that panic sets in. Is it going to be a good or a bad one? I mean, it's fortunately to date, I think I looked this morning, and 96% of the reviews of the book have been 5-star, but part way through, one of the reviews I got has been a 2-star. It's been the only 2-star review, and it was interesting when I read it. It was certainly from someone of a particular behavioural style and type, so I could understand exactly why they didn't actually like the way the book had been written.
Sure, that's understandable. I'm sure your book is great. It is the best selling on Amazon, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone,
can we end the poll, and I'll just in the last few minutes, whilst if people haven't got any other questions, is it okay to end the poll and reshare my screen?
Yep, let me just.
Right, so if I could just share that as it. So that let's have a look. Share screen. Yeah. So if people have enjoyed this and do want to connect with me, can you see that now on screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So if anybody's got any other questions after the session that they want to share with me, please do so. If any of you use LinkedIn, I use that actively, probably more so than Twitter. I do a lot of articles on LinkedIn. So if you want to continue the learning, then feel free to invite me to connect. I'm also on Instagram, so you can see all the places around the world where people are reading Team League Succeed. Fascinating. So if you're into photos, I get people who have bought the book to take a photo of it where in the world they're reading it. So it's been to Alaska, it's been to a deserted beach on the island of Fiji. It's been to the USA. There's some quite creative photos that people have taken of it where it's been in the world. So please feel free to have a look at that. But yeah, any questions, do consider connecting with me, and I'll quite happily answer any questions that spring to mind after this webinar. Okay, have we got any last questions while I was sharing that? There we go. That's not bad. 5 minutes before time. Anything that you need to add, Sevgan?
No, let's just wait for a few more minutes. I do think
no
people are writing. Yeah. Cecilia, I do hope you were able to see the presentation, but just on a side note, it has been recorded, and I do have the presentation slides, so everyone will receive the recording and the slides in PDF. We have a question.
Okay, let's see. How do you measure the 16 elements from the model? Basically, Carolina, people come to me and say, can we actually use the model? And what happens is there's an online questionnaire. So there's only 48 statements, 48 questions that are asked of team members, individuals. The 48 statement responses are anonymous, so you never get to see what an individual has scored a particular question. However, their amalgamated results go to produce the overall report. So I hope that answers your question, Carolina. If it does, yeah, it does. Great. Good. Any others?
Doesn't seem like there's any more questions.
No.
Yep. I think we can start ending it.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you everyone for joining. If you do have any questions, you can always email myself or Nick. He did provide his contact details, and it will also be on the slides that I do send out. You will receive the recording and the slides most probably next week. If you are interested in any courses, please feel free to email me. And thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time. Good to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your help, Sevgan.
No worries, my pleasure.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.